is a very special guest joining me today. He is somebody that has an incredible body of work, both as a player and now analyzing the game, evaluating the game, talking about the game. He is someone I respect tremendously as a basketball mind. He has done incredible work throughout his career, as I mentioned, also now just analyzing the game and talking about it. And so with that being said, it is truly a blessing to be able to welcome on Rashad Phillips. Rashad, how you doing today?
Me. It really means a lot.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking time to come on today.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been watching you from afar, and I'm like, hey, you're doing an excellent job, and you're really good at this. So I said, you know what? Let me join.
Absolutely. Well, I know I've had for a long time, it's been typically just current players, it's been coaches and all. And this will be the first non just current player coach I've had on. And I wanted to kick it off with you because I mentioned your mind is tremendous in terms of the game of basketball. You've done incredible work. You identify talent just as good as anybody. Like I say, it's almost, in my opinion, like it's almost a disrespectful to say a media member because I think you're a lot more like, per se, a front office member or something. It's not your typical media person that you've taken on. So I want to kind of go back a little bit into your career though before we talk some basketball stuff. And you've had an incredible career. You were the all-time leading scorer at Detroit. Obviously, Antoine Davis now broke that record, but you had an incredible career. And there's one story I really want to touch up on, and that's the aspect that you were at a showcase camp. It's the Magic Round Ball Classic.
Yeah.
And I know you've shared the story before, but you come in, and originally you weren't a part of the team. You end up going in as an alternate fill-in.
Yeah.
And Kobe Bryant's in that. And you end up coming away with MVP. So I need to take us to that story a little bit.
Yeah. Well, just to give you the short version of that, because I give the long version in my book. So I'm gonna give you the short version. I was a kid that was an all-state player coming out of the city of Detroit. And I got a call by Sonny Vaccaro at the time and said, hey, we're going to be a guy short. We would like for you to come practice with the guys. You're not going to be on a team. We just want you to come practice as a fill-in. So after I practiced with the 19 other All-Americans, me being unranked in the scrimmages, I was kind of outplaying everybody.
Mm.
So you speed things up to 2 days later, they're like, hey, we want you in the game. Not only do we want you to play in the game, we're actually going to start you. So I end up starting in the Magic Round Ball Classic, led my team to a win over Kobe Bryant, Tim Thomas, Richard Hamilton. Like they were loaded. Shaheen Holloway, they were loaded. I led our team, helped lead our team to a win, and I got the MVP. And that's when me and Kobe kind of developed our friendship for the next couple of decades.
Now, let me just set the table for some people that aren't necessarily familiar with you as a player. You're not necessarily the tallest guy. So you're going up against a guy and Kobe Bryant, 6'6". You go against these different guys, and you've had this mentality as being a guy under 6 foot as a guard, not the easiest job to do. You proved it is capable of being done, but it's not an easy role to take on. How were you able to develop that mindset while being a guy that majority of the time you're not going to have a height advantage to any extent? How are you able to be so efficient, so productive throughout your career while never having those advantages that a lot of players typically would have, just God-given abilities?
Yeah, it's a great question, Zach. I think for me, I always looked at my size as an advantage opposed to a disadvantage.
Mm.
And that kind of helped me, growing up because my father was really adamant on being skilled, being elusive, and perfecting the dribbling and perfecting the jump shot. And I feel like if you can do that, and you mix in the toughness and the grit and wanting to be great, that makes the game easy for a player like myself, and that's why I had so much success.
There are a few nicknames and things people that have called you. One of them that you've, I know, taken on a lot has been Yoda. Can you
Yeah.
take us through that? Like, was that a nickname that just came over time? Did someone give it to you? Got to take us through the backstory of that.
Yeah, so my man JT out in Michigan gave me that name, so I can't even take credit for it. JT, when you see this, um, I was trained and I had my own basketball academy called Skills Unlimited based out of Michigan. And we had over 200 students. And a lot of the kids coming out of my program, they were starting to see some success from middle school, high school, elementary, AAU, male and female.
Mhm.
And I ran into my guy Julian at a high school game, and he was like, "Man, every time I turn around, one of your students is playing well." He was like, you're like Yoda. Like you have all these little Skywalkers, and you're teaching people, and you're able to predict things." So Julian gave me the name Yoda, and I've always been a Star Wars person.
Hmm.
So I kind of took on that identity, and it was like, you know what, it actually fits, and I really like it. So I just kind of ran with it.
When we talk about your ability to predict the game, as you mentioned, you've done a fantastic job at that. We look at the resume you've had. I know the two ones that most people are going to credit for and talk about is John Morant, Trae Young, two guys that you predicted becoming the superstar,
Yeah,
all NBA, face
yeah.
of franchise type players well before anyone else saw it. How do you evaluate players? What is it about a guy? We can even use those two guys specifically. When you saw Ja or Trey at their younger ages,
Yeah.
why did you feel confident saying, you know what, I know these two guys are guys that I truly believe will become the next big thing in the NBA?
Well, specifically for Ja and Trey, I think for me, being a former player, I saw a lot of myself in both of them.
Mm,
And I knew when I was a player, I played with that similar style of play, but during my time in my era, that style wasn't accepted.
yeah.
But as evolution ran its course, guys like Trae Young and John Morant, I felt the NBA was trending in that direction
Mm,
where they would allow guys to play the game freely. For Trae, and for an example, is really relying on his skill set. Trae is a skilled player. John Moran is more of an athletic specimen, but he's
mhm,
also has high IQ. So I felt like both of their games kind of resemble parts of mine.
mhm.
So that kind of helped me evaluate and kind of predict their success.
So many people in today's world, I feel like, look at rankings and okay, I'm just gonna look at these guys. This guy's number one, five, six. They're playing this AAU tournament. I'm only gonna go watch them. They're not gonna go watch those guys on court 7 or 8. That's not
Right.
necessarily getting the attention. And Trey was ranked, I guess, for a lot of his career, but Josh specifically, obviously we know his story, was not ranked. Got his one off from Murray State. What is it about you that say, you know what, I'm gonna go look at these other guys?
Right.
I know them. I'm sure I'm gonna go study these other guys, the top five, six,
Yeah.
whatever players, but I'm also gonna keep my eye on these other guys. What's led you to do that and help you now be able to establish relationships and also see these other guys that end up becoming those underrated players?
I'm just always intrigued with um, people that can play at the highest level, but don't seem to have the platform. That's
Mm,
kind of what I was as a player. I played at a mid major. I felt that I was, the best player in college basketball in 2001. That's
mhm,
how I felt,
mhm,
and I didn't have the platform to really echo that. And I think there's a lot of other players out there that have that same type of mentality, and I just really enjoy all aspects of basketball. I'm not just a top heavy guy. Like
mhm,
I really just love all of basketball. So it really helped me identify, the John Morants and so forth, because I'm the person that's going to be sitting at court 8 watching Javon Carter pick up 94 feet at 8 o'clock in the
mhm.
morning. Like I love those type of kids. And I feel that there is always space for players like that. And I feel that kids should understand that there's always somebody watching.
When we look at your overall evaluating of these guys, a lot of people look at the rankings I mentioned, and the ranking aspect is unique because I think it's grown more and more where this pressure is placed on these guys heavier and heavier. You got no longer just the ESPN, you've got 24/7, you've got On Three, you've got all these different things. How do you feel about the ranking game? Do you feel like it's become something that is too big of a spotlight on certain guys? Is it something that's getting too much attention, too much focus on it? Or do you feel like it's in the right place? Like, what's your thoughts on the ranking aspect?
Yeah, I don't think the rankings are the issue. I think that social media has amplified everything,
Mm,
and with everyone, quote unquote, pretending to be an expert in this space has
mhm,
really, oversaturated a lot of that stuff. These kids deserve, to be ranked and shared on platforms, but it's just I think it's the adults that are really messing it up. It's not the kids. There's too many adults that want to be experts, that pretend to be experts, and we're giving the adults too much power over these kids. That there's kids that are ranked 81 that should be ranked eighth,
mm.
and I've witnessed it happen in my own family. Right, I watched my nephew go from being unranked to being the number one point guard in the country. And it
Yeah.
wasn't because he wasn't good enough. It was because people didn't know who he was. So I love the ranking sites, and I just think there's too many hands, or that old saying, too many cooks in the kitchen type
Yeah.
of thing. And we need to kind of concentrate it and close it in more. And I think it'll really echo the way it's supposed to.
So if you were a top ranked recruit in today's world, and you mentioned, I think the social media aspect is crazy because we see in any avenue, whether you're an artist, you are a actor, actress, whatever it might be, those people that get a spotlight where you're quote unquote a celebrity at a young age. I mean, it's tough being a celebrity at any point in your life, but when you're younger and it's tough enough going through high school, it's tough enough going through those aspects. How would you balance that? How would you balance seeing your followers go up, seeing over time all those people, when you almost have to be a celebrity in a sense at a young age? How would you balance that?
You gotta keep the main thing the main thing. And at that age, the main thing is academics and your athletics. Your social life can come third. And once you concentrate on the two components of academics and athletics, I think that's where um, you can strive. There's a lot of
Mhm.
kids that don't have they have those things checked off, but not in that order. I think you have to have it in order. Some kids got social life first, athletics, academics,
Yeah.
so I think it's the order of what you put things, and then you kind of operate out of that order.
This is a little bit off track right now, but I've always been wanting to ask you this. And I mentioned in the intro that you're somebody that you are a lot more similar to a front office, a GM, whatever it might be, as opposed to just a typical media person. Have you ever considered going into a front office? Is that something that you have interest in? Would you like to be a general manager someday or a scout, whatever it might be?
Probably not a scout.
Hmm.
Scouting is I don't know. Probably not a scout, but front office, that's something that I would seriously consider, because I believe I have a gift at
Yep.
that, and it's
Hmm.
something that I truly enjoy, and I have a passion for. So that's something that I would consider if the right team and the right situation for me and my family, I would definitely do it.
Well, let's get into a thing that's really brought your attention to right now, and that is your new book, Basketball Position Metric. And you took on a unique aspect in terms of identifying other positions. Now, essentially, they were in the game already, but you gave a name to those positions. So I want you to take us through this process because I think anyone that looked at basketball over the past few years is like, well, there's something that's different. Obviously, all these point guards are not point guards, all these shooting guards are not shooting guards, but what are they? And so it was something that I think everyone noticed, but no one was like put any pencil to pen in that, or paper to, or pen to pencil, or pen to paper on that. So I want you to take us through that aspect. What inspired you to decide to go into this and say, you know what, I want to identify these positions. I'm going to create the name for them. What led to that?
I think my upbringing kind of led to it. I was born in the basketball world. My father started a basketball community center in 1979.
Hmm.
So I've seen a lot of basketball, been around a lot of basketball, played a lot of basketball, and over the years, I'm 45 years old. So over 40 plus years, I've had a database of the
Hmm.
game of basketball. And as the game would evolve, I would just see how the play styles would attract a new consumer, and how the game started to take more of an entertainment route opposed to just a basketball route. And you look at a guy like Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry just said like yesterday on the Gilbert Arenas show that he was the best point guard ever.
Hmm.
And as much as I personally love Steph Curry, I disagree with him because I don't think Steph Curry is a point guard.
Hmm.
And in my book, I break it down. I think Steph Curry is what I would call a hybrid guard. I think
Hmm.
he's a more of a off-ball, disruptive game plan killer,
Hmm.
that kind of plays the game um, in a different way than the traditional point guard like a Magic Johnson or Isaiah Thomas or
Sure.
those type of guys, right? So in my book, I just kind of break down the new positions, and I really talk about how guys need to be rearranged and slotted properly, so the masses can understand that the game is more evolved and is bigger than just five slots.
A new aspect that the NBA is introducing next year is the changing it for the All NBA team. It's no longer the two guard, two forward, one center spot. I think that's huge because we've seen guys that Embiid, Jokic, whatever it might be, probably should have both been all first team. They can't be it because of the rule, whatever it might be. How big are you on that aspect that the NBA is essentially, when it comes to awards at least, breaking down that barrier of saying, okay, you have to be this position, that position. That's the way you make it. How big are you on that?
I'm huge on it. I wrote it in my book.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it as a chapter in my book where I talk about the NBA needs to change the rules and how they view first, second team. And I
Yeah.
think they understand that because slotting guys in positions does more damage than it does good. So now you open up you open it up a little bit and you give guys like Embiid and Jokic an opportunity to be on the first team together instead of
Mm-hmm.
just making them push the other one out when they both deserve to be where they supposed to.
So if you're going to go out now and you were a general manager and you had to pick out the guy to build your team around, what position do you believe is the most valuable position?
There's always going to be the point guard position.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just like football. Like you teams start building with the quarterback, right? You got to have the Joe Burrows, you got to have the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens. You can't
Mm-hmm.
win without a quarterback. You can have great receivers and great running backs, but if you don't have a great signal caller, you're gonna struggle. So I always will start my building a team with the point guard.
Now, when you talk about the different types of point guards, obviously you mentioned the hybrid guard. When you're talking about Steph Curry, the traditional point guard, whatnot, which one do you feel is the most impactful? Or do you think they're all just equal, just in different ways?
I think they're equal all in different ways. I mean, you look at a guy like Steve Nash, who I would consider a TG, which is a traditional guard. Steve
Mm-hmm.
Nash, Jason Kidd, Muggsy Bogues, Eric Snow, like those guys were traditional guards. Steve Nash won an MVP playing traditional,
Yep.
right? Then you got the point guard like Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson and Trae Young. Isaiah Thomas won back-to-back championships. Magic
Mm-hmm.
won MVPs and championships playing that position. And then you got the hybrid guard, like a Steph Curry and a Damian Lillard and a Jamal Murray and Kyrie
Yep.
Irving. Like those are your hybrids. Russell Westbrook. They've also won MVPs and championships at that position. So they're all pretty much equally dangerous. It's just they're just different styles of play.
So, of all these positions, have they always been there? It just has become more changed a little bit in terms of Steph Curry. Obviously, becomes more of a lethal shooter. They're shooting further back, more efficiently, or whatever. And or have there been new positions? Like has as Steph Curry and the Trae Youngs and all these different guys come in, has it changed? And if that is the answer, then going forward, how many more positions do you think that could be created in the future now?
Yeah, I think some these positions were already there.
Okay.
You look at Chris Jackson, formerly known as Chris Jackson, Abdul Raul. He was a
Hmm.
hybrid guard. Like that was back in the '90s.
Yeah.
Oscar Robertson was a hybrid guard. So there you got the stretch big position with Bob McAdoo, the point center Bill Walton. So these new positions they were already kind of developed, but like you said in the beginning, I was able to kind of sit back and actually you know, put pen to paper and give it
Hmm.
an identity. We have already been watching these players. We
Yeah.
just didn't know what to call them. So we would use the term positionless basketball. That's how
Hmm.
we summed it up. Like, oh, the game is positionless now.
Hmm.
Game can never be positionless. There's positions, there's just
Hmm.
new positions. So I do, to answer your second question, I do think there will be more positions added as we continue to watch the game. So be looking out for a part two to my book one day.
Now, we do want to get into your book a little bit deeper because you are officially an author now. That just adds to your long resume. What led to the inspiration to say, you know what, I do want to create a book. I want to take on this next chapter as an author now. What led to that?
Um, I've always been a writer.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, I always loved to write. Just, I mean, I used to write small scripts, small movies as a kid and try to act them out. I always wrote scouting reports. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a passion to write.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, this book was easy to write. It was challenging in regards to I had to format it the right way, but the
Mm-hmm.
writing part of it was really easy for me because by trade I'm a writer.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you wrote up scripts and acted it when you're younger. You got to give us a little bit more backstory on that now.
Yeah, so I was I led a play. I always loved my favorite movie. I talk about this in the book. My favorite movie is The Wizard of Oz and The Wiz, and I had to play the Scarecrow as a kid, and I just always loved screenwriting and just kind of writing stuff and acting it out, and me writing evaluations as a kid. I mean, I'll sit in my office and just write stuff. Like I just love to write.
Mhm. That is a unique thing because I think in today's world too, the lesson so many people are taught, as at least as kids, is that focusing on one thing. This has got to be your life. If that's athletics, you're only on athletics. It's only going to be about basketball. You're only going to work on football. If you're this, that, or third, it's not a lot of diversifying, and or at least kids are allowed to diversify anymore. How important do you think it is for kids to be able to say, you know what, I love this craft, but I also like this too. Let me go work on this aspect. Let me work on this aspect and have a portfolio so that when you're older, you can say, yo, I love writing. I love playing. I love this. Like, how
Yeah.
important is it to have a diversification in terms of just what you do as a kid?
I think it's super important to really try to maximize all of your likes. The
Hmm.
younger you are, you want to experiment the most the younger you are, because the older you get, when you get my age, you should already have honed in on what you really want to do. So I think the younger you are, try different stuff, experiment with different things, and then see what really starts to take shape and take form. And as you get older, then you can concentrate on which one of those that really hit home for you. And that's what I did. I used to like to write. I used to like to dance. I used to like to
Hmm.
play sports. And then I just started, the writing just kind of just really took a life of its own over time. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I need to write a book because I just love to write.
When you make some of the bold predictions you have made, you've also encountered a lot of haters on yourself, and it's quite evident. You look in the comments, you look at stuff. I
Woo.
think it's quite obvious to you. So you gotta kind of walk us through this aspect because
All right.
you changed a lot of the aspects of the game, and not a lot of people are there. And obviously, there's been different couple different predictions you made that headline that. I know a lot of people really just go back to that one thing. You might get 20 or 30 predictions right, but the one they're gonna go back to it forever. So how do you deal with that? Is that something that you've learned to adjust to over time? Was it harder when you're a little bit earlier process of this, or how have you adjusted all the haters?
Yeah. So it was, a couple years ago, it was a little bit of a challenge because I didn't know that, how many people on social media bring negativity.
Hmm.
It's like, wow, like it's so much negativity out here, and it'll show its ugly head
Hmm.
a lot. And social media is a place where a lot of that hangs out. So for me, it took time to really learn how to deal with that. But also my playing career, I understood I always was a person that had to play with his back against the wall. So that kind of helped me with that. And it's part of who I am. It's part of the gig, they would say.
Yeah.
But for me, I've learned on social media, I don't even go back and forth with people anymore on social media. Like I'll leave my posts and I won't even go back and forth. Like I said something
Mm.
today, like about Steph Curry saying he's better than Magic. I said that they don't even play the same position, and this is people just going crazy. And I don't even engage in it anymore. I
Hmm.
don't even talk basketball with people online unless I respect their
Hmm.
acumen. Other than that, I just let it be what it be.
Now I got to ask you two parts of this next question. The first one is what prediction or guy that you identified at a young age would you say is the one that you take the most pride in? That you say, okay, man, I got that guy way before. No one else saw that. That's the guy. That's your favorite one. And at the other time, which one would you say was the one that you think you missed on the most?
Yeah, like my favorite one obviously is Ja Morant, man. Like I
Yeah.
can't like I saw Ja in high school.
Hmm.
Like and a lot of people don't know this about Ja, but Ja is such an excellent student of the game. Like he
Hmm.
really studies film. And I know this for a fact because when Ja was in college at Murray State, we would DM each other all the time, and he would DM me things like, "Hey, what did you see in my game? I need to study tape to watch this, watch that." This was when he was a freshman and nobody knew who he was.
Mm.
He was always a student of the game. So I just take pride in watching Ja take superstardom, because this is a kid that I had a relationship with before anybody else even knew who he was. So I take huge pride in that.
Yeah.
and always will. I'm a huge supporter of him and his family, and I'm also a fan of what he does on the court, entertainment wise.
Oh yeah.
He's been tremendous for my family, and my daughters, and the take that people love to use with me is the Luca take, and I love talking about that. Right, I
Hmm.
love it. Like I don't shy away from that. I just leave people alone who want to be disrespectful about
Yeah.
it. For me, I love talking about that take.
Hmm.
So for me, when I watched Luca play overseas, I think he was a 12-point scorer. I mean, you
Hmm.
can look it up. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I remember he was like a 12-point scorer. And I was like, man, like that style of play that he's playing in Europe is not going to translate at the NBA level. The NBA is going to be a lot faster. The defenders are going to be a lot better.
Hmm.
So I don't know what he's going to be. I still mocked him as a first round pick, but I didn't have him slotted as like superstar,
Sure.
MVP. I was just like, he's going to be a really good player. And he reminds me a lot of Hedo Turkoglu.
Mm.
Hedo Turkoglu was my favorite player on the Orlando Magic when they ran with Dwight Howard and went to the finals. I thought Hedo Turkoglu was the engine to that team.
Yeah.
So I was like, he kind of reminds me a little bit of him. So once he got to the NBA, he was like scoring a lot. And I was like, wow, like I didn't think
Hmm.
he was going to be a great scorer because he never showed that in Europe. He was more of
Hmm.
a facilitator in Europe. But he came to the NBA and it was like they just gave him the ball and spread it out and he just went berserk. And I salute him for that.
Hmm.
I think he's an excellent player. I think that one day he will win MVP.
Hmm.
And if he gets the right mix around him and he kind of turns down the volume a little bit on his individual talent, I
Yeah.
think he can lead Dallas to a championship one day.
That's a huge thing why I respect about you there too, because I think for a lot of people that just want to go on Twitter and just look at the post or whatever, a lot of people say, well, he got the Luca thing wrong. He's never going to want to admit to it. And I've seen people say that and all that, but that right there shows like you're able to say, you know what, I got one wrong. I'm going to admit to it. And that's cool. But at the same time, too, like I mentioned, you've got a lot more right than you have got wrong.
Yeah.
So when you talk about that, is there any times that you have gone back and forth with people before and been like, okay, so yeah, I might have got one wrong, but how about the 20, 30 other ones I got right in the same time span?
Yeah. And so I look at it like this, Zach, in my profession and me when I'm evaluating and making predictions, I look at it like free throw percentage, right? Like I
Hmm.
feel like that I have a high percentage of my predictions coming true. So when you look at it like that, I have no problem with it. And it comes with the territory. Like you look at Mel Kiper and
Yeah.
Todd McShay, like it's funny, like all these guys that are in that world, they get stuff wrong. I watched Mel Kiper say that the Jimmy Clausen, he would he quit his job if Jimmy Clausen wouldn't turn into a superstar in the NFL. Well, Mel Kiper's still working, and Jimmy Clausen did not turn into a superstar. And it's
Hmm.
nothing against Jimmy Clausen at all. I thought he was tremendous at Notre Dame. I watched him. I'm a football guy.
Hmm.
But I think guys like Mel Kiper, they still sit on TV and make predictions, and they're wrong all the time. People didn't think that Patrick Mahomes was going to be good. They thought Mitch Trubisky was going to be better than Patrick Mahomes, right?
Hmm.
It's just part of the business. You're going to get some wrong, you're going to get some right. But for me personally, I've gotten way more right than I've
Hmm.
gotten wrong.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's a fact.
Hmm. Can we get a little bit into Jaw a little bit more because he is somebody that, if I'm gonna be honest, he's probably one of my favorite players. Watching him, I mean, he's the definition of box office. I don't know if you get too much more box office
Yeah,
definition than that. Like
yeah,
he is what people come. He's gonna get you tickets. He's gonna fill an arena.
yeah.
Obviously, we know there's been some stuff for the past 8 months, whatever, that has caused controversy, has caused the effects of that. When you talk about John, you've known him longer than most people have even seen or heard of him. What do you think is he going to be something that's going to be able to bounce back? Do you think this is the end of it? Will he be able to turn his stuff around and be able to become the player and the person that people have known him to be up until this past few months?
Yeah, man. Like here's what I got so many phone calls from TV stations that wanted me to come on and speak about Ja, and I just would turn them down because I just
Hmm.
wasn't really for that. I'm gonna say this, man. Here's what a lot of people don't know about Ja Morant. Like he is one of the most genuine people that I have ever encountered. Like
Mhm.
not just one of the most genuine athletes. He's one of the most genuine people that I've ever encountered. Like
Mhm.
he loves kids. He's very, very down to earth. He understands what's going on. At the end of the day, he was a kid that made a bad decision, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad person or this or that. Like, I'm glad they didn't have social media when I was playing because I would have made a lot of bad decisions,
Yeah.
right? So I don't like that people want to sit up on their soapbox and play judge, knowing that
Mhm.
when you were 21, 22 years old, you were doing some things that you don't want to share with people as well. So that's
Definitely.
kind of how I say it. John Morant will, I won't say he will bounce back. He has already bounced back as a person. He's going to continue to be the most electrifying basketball player in the world.
Mm.
And the Memphis Grizzlies will continue to win games as long as he's at the helm of it.
Another aspect about basketball I really want to pick your mind on is the globalization of this game because it's the sport that is now the second most followed sport across the world. I know in America, not a lot of people see that, recognize that because we're a football dominant state or country, but basketball is growing rapidly. It's everywhere, anywhere. It's going to be followed. It's loved. How good do you think it is for the game of basketball? How cool is it too to see the way that this game has grown and is growing just so rapidly?
I think it's fantastic.
Hmm.
I made this statement and prediction on Twitter about 2 months ago. I think the NBA needs to expand teams. I think
Definitely.
they need to add four more teams. And I also think they need to add another round to the draft. I think the draft should be 3 rounds
Hmm.
opposed to 2 rounds because the influx of talent and the game is growing, is becoming more global. So you need more spots
Definitely.
for the NBA. So that just kind of goes hand in hand to what you just asked.
We're about ready to get into the World Cup play. Next year will be the Olympics. And obviously, this year's team is a lot of younger guys. They look special. They were 5-0 already, look great. But when you talk about the talent, France is looking special, especially if they're the ones that end up getting Joel Embiid to play with their team. They're going to be a problem. They also have Victor and those guys out there. You have Spain, obviously, is good. Canada is growing. They're going to have a full roster of NBA guys. Nigeria has talent. NBA is growing, as I mentioned. Do you still believe that USA is the best talent? When we come time to world play, are they the best? And if so, is there ever a day that you think that other countries or maybe a specific country has a chance at catching up to the United States talent wise?
I think the United States is still superior,
Hmm.
even though the game, like we just talked about, is globalizing and the talent has spread out. But I think as a whole, America is still the mecca of basketball talent, and I don't
Hmm.
think that's going anywhere no time soon.
So with the World Cup coming up soon, what's your expectations? How excited about this Team USA team? Do you think they're going to take home gold? What's your thoughts on that?
I think they win gold, but I don't think it's going to be easy at all.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to sweep through like the dream team in '92. I think
Hmm.
they're going to lose a game or two. Because there's other talented teams, and in the game of basketball, it's the beauty of the game of basketball. They're gonna play a team that's gonna shoot 60-70% from the field.
Yeah.
There's not gonna be nothing they can do, and they're gonna lose.
Hmm.
That's just how the game of basketball plays. But I do think they're gonna win gold. They have a solid roster of players. I think Anthony Edwards is the go-to guy on that team,
Hmm.
rightfully so. And I'm excited to watch them win.
There was a little bit of controversy when the teams were being put together. This obviously is not the main team. We don't got LeBron and KD and whatnot there. This is the younger guys up and coming, the future of the game. There was one guy that we've already talked about that wasn't on that team in Trae Young.
Yep.
And there was a lot of controversy. I know there was rumors about the Adidas deal, whatever it might be. What was your thoughts on that? Obviously, talent-wise, I think he should be on that team. I know they constructed a little bit different, having not necessarily just go for the top 12 guys. It was a little bit more building a roster out, but still, Trae Young probably should have been on that team. What's your thoughts on that?
I definitely thought Trae Young should be on the team. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
no-brainer for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think Trae Young's the best point guard in the NBA.
Mm.
So why shouldn't the best point guard in the NBA represent our country as the point guard? And that's no disrespect to the guys that they have. Like I love Halliburton, I love Brunson, I love
Sure.
all the guys on the team. But I do believe that Trae is the one that can really do a little bit of everything. Like he's the best passer to me in the league.
Mm-hmm.
His scoring speaks for itself, and you got to have a guy like that. With the international rules, I think he'll be tremendous in the international rules because college basketball is a lot like the international rules, and we
Yeah.
saw what Trey did in college basketball. Like he led the nation in scoring and assists. So
Yep.
he's proved that he can play in the FIBA rules. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought that it was maybe a little bit of a mistake on that end, not having him on the team. But I like the guys that we have, and I think
Yeah.
we can win gold with the roster that's already assembled.
So what do you think possibly led to that? Was it something that you think that whole shoe theory had anything to do with it, or what do you think possibly led to that?
I don't know, Zach. I don't do the gossiping. I don't know.
Now, there was another thing I touched up with you and I want to talk about is you had a tweet a little bit ago about coaching, and you talked about this you kind of brought up a few different guys, and you mentioned, is it the coach that makes the player, or is the player that makes the coach?
Woo.
That's an interesting topic, and that is something I think we also look at it too, and it's probably crosses people's minds at certain points. But can you just take us through, like, I just want to hear all your information, what you got to say about that. Just break that all down for us.
I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. I think there's no right or wrong answer to that. Honestly,
Mm,
I wanted to get everybody on Twitter. I wanted to get them thinking. Like
yeah.
my tweets, I just like to get people to think.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, sometimes the player does make the coach, and
Yeah.
I think sometimes the coach makes the player. There's a case by case study. Let's take Derrick Rose and Tom Thibodeau. Do I think Thibodeau's a great coach? No, I don't. I don't think he's a
Mm-hmm.
great coach. I thought Derrick Rose was the greater player that made Tom Thibodeau a greater coach.
Mm,
That's nothing against Tom Thibodeau. I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. Then you had guys like Phil Jackson, which I was kind of on the fence on because a
mm-hmm.
lot of people were mad at me about this, but I just feel like, and I like Phil Jackson as a coach, but I think he coached some of the greatest players of all time.
Oh yeah.
Now, that's not just the pushback against that is will Phil, manage those egos, and he did. He
That's
did.
true. Mm-hmm.
He did. That's true. I think Phil was a master communicator, and he really understood how to navigate the egos and things of that nature. But also, when you have the greatest players of all time playing for you, I think me and you can figure out how to manage the egos
Mm-hmm.
too, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
Kobe Bryant and Shaq can take us home,
Oh yeah.
and Jordan and Scottie Pippen can take us home too, if we learn how to manage egos. And I feel our assistant coaches with guys that are X's and O's, and that's what Phil Jackson did. He
Mm-hmm.
hired Tex Winters.
Yeah.
Tex Winters was the X and O guy. He put in the triangle. Phil was the communicating guy. They
Mm-hmm.
worked together. So you can't mention Phil Jackson without giving Tex Winters his credit as well. And that's what I was saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, something I want to wrap up with. It's a little game I haven't played before with anybody, but I want to just give
Uh-oh.
a little rapid quest. 10 questions I want to ask you. We've got some mixture of NCAA stuff, NBA stuff.
Oh,
Just
man.
give us the first answer that comes up to you. So we're going to get right into this now. Number one, who is the most underrated player in the NBA today?
Most underrated player in De'Aaron Fox.
Mm. Second one, best player in the NBA today.
Jokic.
Best career from the 2023 NBA draft.
Best career from the 2023 NBA draft. Woo. Man. I'm gonna go with Keontae George.
So over Victor?
I'm going Keontae George.
All right. Who is the biggest steal from the 2023 NBA draft?
Ben Shepherd.
The 2024 NCAA champion will be in college.
Oh, Michigan State. They got the best backcourt in the country.
Who is going to be the biggest breakout player in college basketball this year?
Javian McCullum, Oklahoma.
As for the NBA, the 2024 NBA champion will be?
Denver will repeat.
Who is the next face of the NBA?
Anthony Edwards.
Great. Who's going to be the greatest? Who is the greatest player in NBA history?
I knew you were gonna throw a trick question at me. Michael Jordan.
And the last one, number 10. Your Mount Rushmore of NBA players. Who are they?
Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Wilt Chamberlain, Steph Curry.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to touch upon two of those really quickly. The first one is the greatest player in NBA history, MJ. We all heard it. You said it. Like I said, I respect your opinion most definitely. I think the only guy at this point in time with a chance of passing him would obviously be LeBron, as we all talk about. Is there anything LeBron could do to possibly pass MJ in your eyes?
Yeah, LeBron can win. If LeBron wins another championship at this stage of his career, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have LeBron and Jordan like 1A, 1B.
Okay.
Like some days I wake up in the morning and be like, LeBron's the greatest of all time, and then I wake up and be like Kobe, right? Like so, I'm a LeBron guy. So
Yeah.
I love LeBron James. So it's for me, it's really a tie. But I know I
Mm-hmm.
had to pick one.
Yeah.
Um, so it would be that. But I just love LeBron so much.
So the way I've always looked at that, and I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on this, is when I look at it, I think it's a lot easier to say that's the best player of each generation. Like I think LeBron has clearly been this guy, Kobe before that,
Yeah,
MJ before that, Bill Russell. Each guy,
yeah,
Magic, they've all had their decade-ish run of dominance. When you look at it, do you think that's a better way of looking at it, or how do you think is it easier to evaluate a guy by saying, okay, this was the GOAT of this era, or how do you think about that?
yeah. I think you have to separate it by eras
Yeah.
because saying one player is the best of every player, that just doesn't really make sense if you sit
Yeah.
down and think about it. Like
Mm-hmm.
because when I say Michael Jordan is the GOAT, but so he's the GOAT at all of basketball because there's other players that did something better than Jordan. Like
Mm-hmm.
Steph Curry shot the three-pointer better than Jordan,
Yeah.
right? So LeBron was stronger than Jordan. Wilt Chamberlain was stronger than LeBron, or LeBron was faster than Kobe, or right. So they all did something better than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to just say one player is the top of all of them, right? They all are goats all the way. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's multiple goats opposed to one.
Okay, definitely. And the other one I gotta touch up on a little bit more is you said the best career from the 2023 NBA draft. I know a lot of people say we might have the next potential GOAT and Victor in this draft. Scoot looks special. Obviously, got Brandon Miller up in there, a lot of other guys too. You said Keontae George. He had played one heck of a display. He showed a lot of talent out there in the summer league. Obviously, he did great. I think the first half of the season at Baylor had a little bit of injury, slowed him down a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah.
You think he's gonna have the best career from that draft class? Take us through your reasoning for that.
I just think the way that he scores the ball, and I mean, he reminds me a lot of Donovan Mitchell. I think he's on that type
Mm-hmm.
of path. He's explosive. He can shoot the three-pointer. He's an excellent passer. He's an underrated defender.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he'll have a long, productive career. I mean, Victor, I like Victor. I like Brandon Miller, and I love Scoot. Like, I like those
Mm-hmm.
guys. But it's going to be about the longevity. When you
Yeah.
talk about who's going to have the better career, it's not about who's going to win a championship. It's who's going to have the better career. So longevity wise, I think that Keontae George has a chance to put about 10 years together
Mm-hmm.
where we say, okay, he really did well.
Absolutely. Well, Rashad, I appreciate you taking time to come on today. It was an honor to have you on. Love talking basketball with you. Keep doing your work. Like I said, I definitely admire everything you've done. I can't wait to see what God's got next for you in the future, man.
Thank you so much, Zach, for having me. It's been a pleasure. Talk soon.
Absolutely. Talk to you later. God bless.